welcome to another episode. Today we're going to discuss the different types of materials that models can be made of and the different pros and cons to working with different types of materials, whether you're interested in getting into resin printing, 3D printing, or if you're just interested in getting into model building and collecting. It's probably important to note where you maybe want to start and what type of materials you might be looking at. So if you're used to seeing the more custom Warhammer 40K or just Warhammer in general, these kind of figurines, these are what you would consider your 32 millimeter scale. These are your standard kind of like army soldier size. These are really good scale, very high detail, very well made, very nice miniatures. And then, of course, on the opposite side of that, you have the 3D resin printed. These are UV resin printed figurines. And these are not mass produced. These are not injection molded. These are made one at a time. um, and he is made on very nice 8K material. So he is very high quality. So again, whether you're looking for something that you're going to be able to play with, because obviously you can't bring him to a competition of any sort because he's not an official anything. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, technically he does have some 5e character stat blocks, I think, that are available for these particular characters. So they are involved. You can involve them in your games. They are involved in the D&D universe in that sense, but they're homebrewed because they're made by the company that makes them, which is Purple God Foundry. And I do believe most of them are actually based on real D&D races. I think they're just kind of like hybrids and like kind of legendary versions of those. So they're really interesting. Could you use him in any other game? Yeah, probably if you wanted to. I'm sure you could make use of him in Pathfinder. I'm sure you could probably find a way to use him in Warhammer if you wanted to. You can have a lot of fun with different types of miniatures. I think that's irrelevant. But we're going to go over in this episode. I'm going to show you some close-ups, some good shots of the different materials. We're going to go over. I'm going to show them either they're going to be black, painted black, just sprayed black, or they're going to be just raw, like gray, or whatever color they came in. Some of them are kind of like a whitish gray. And then we'll show some different materials in each one, and I'll go over all the different materials as we kind of review them, so you can see as I kind of compare and contrast the different pros and cons between each type of material. All right, so let's go ahead and start with a box kit Warhammer figurine. He is all painted up, and yeah, when the camera focuses on him, you'll actually get to see him. And he looks pretty good. Nice detail. He's painted black. He's ready to be zenithal primed. A little dust on him because it's been a minute since I primed him. Hard to keep him in focus. But good detail. Look nice, and this is durable plastic. Like, you could drop these on the floor, and probably the worst thing that's going to happen is he's going to pop free from his base. This next piece is a resin 3D print that has been underpainted. He is ready to paint completely, and nice details on him. When the camera wants to focus, we can get a better look there. There we go. And like I said, nice details, good depth. This is printed in 8K material as well. This is high grade resin. Definitely the type of detail I'm usually looking for. I hate this one in particular because it's only on 1 foot, but I really like the design. This is purchased. This is one of Nolzur's treasures, I believe. And this is a owlbear. Really cool figurine. This one's actually been underpainted. It's slap chopped, if you will, ready for paint. I like to use speed paint as my basing for these figurines. This one's like nice detail, so I think it's gonna look really good. This is purchased out of a box. This is from Steamforged Games, Epic Encounters. This is decent plastic, decent detail. Doesn't look so great when it's not painted, but I have painted one of their pieces before and they actually turn out really nice. This is the frog from the intro, or iguana. I think someone told me he might be an iguana. I might be wrong. I thought he was a frog. Either way, he looks pretty cool. I mean, look at those details. That is fantastic. Here's another one from the same artist. Obviously, this one is a crocodile. Very beautiful details. Again, gorgeous. I mean, and this is a resin print. So, again, you're working with very, very fine detail, very small scale. But resin printers are really good with small scale, high detail. This is a mimic from I believe this again is Nulzer's, one of Nulzer's. I like their minis. They're decent material. The door here is a little flimsy, but obviously, that's just a thing, but it's pretty decent material. This is a mixture of two. This is a print on top, and the bottom there is purchased terrain. So you can mix the two. I've green stuffed the heck out of the connection between the two parts, but you can't really tell that now because it's been primed and ready to paint pretty much. Okay, now we're going to go back to showing you some more that are 3D printed. This is one that has been primed and ready to paint. And that's a 3D printed. There was actually 2 figurines. I glued that together. They use the dude sitting on top of the polar bear. It was printed as separate parts, and the base was also obviously a separate part. And yeah, the bear barely fits on that base, but that was kind of a kit bash. That wasn't the original base. This is raw 3D printed. This is a lower grade resin. You can see it's still decent detail, but it's definitely less detail than some of the higher grade material. Now we have more Warhammer. These are their kind of like their gotcha boxes. It's like a mystery box as to which character you're going to get. This was one of the ones that we got. They are made on blue plastic. Seems the same detail level as some of their mainstream prints. Not prints, molds. This is one of our 3D printed Warhammer characters. Obviously, you can immediately tell because he's not on a standard base and definitely not a standard Warhammer character, but tried to make him about the scale they should be. These are some raw, unprinted, and lower grade resin. This is 4K resin, standard plus material. Good details, decent enough. This one is a purchased kit. This is Steam Forge Games. This is animals of I believe, the faraway sea. Beautiful details on this, actually. This is a really nice sculpt. Not as a nice sculpt, it's a nice detail. Whatever material they're using here is very well made. I would say this is on par with some of the 3D prints that I make. This is another 3D print. He's been primed white. This is 8K material. Beautiful details. Love this particular print. It looks awesome. This is another one of the 3D prints. This is done in high quality material. This is 8K material. This one has some exquisite detail to it. A lot of the miniatures I'm showing you are Cripple God Foundry and Maya K M3DM. If you guys are interested in getting their 3D print files, they're both on my Mini Factory. If you're interested in getting physical prints, hit up our shop. This is a Warhammer style bust. This is a customer request. She is supposed to be a female space marine, which doesn't exist in the universe. So there you go. I broke a bunch of rules with this one. She's not a kit bash. She's actually a sculpt that we found on my manufacturing, and somebody wanted her painted. So beautiful material though, 3D printed in 8K quality material. Now I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way because the next piece I'm going to show you is really big, and this is what I refer to as poured resin, or this is like heavy duty resin. And the detail on this is absolutely flawless. We were sent this as a commission piece. I believe this is a Plague Angel. He's going to be painted and sent back to the customer, but this is, I believe the company that makes these guys is Creature Caster. I don't know if he's even available anymore. But this was sent to us and requested to be painted. So we're going to work on this one and send it back. But this material is amazing. Not only is it really high detail and looks great, but it is hyper durable. Like, I feel like even if I dropped him, the pieces wouldn't snap. It would more than likely he would bend a little bit, and they have some give to them. So even when you have a problem like a drop or something, it's not always a death sentence. Um, I think that's important. So it's very durable material. That's why I kind of saved that one for near last. Again, some more 3D prints. These are little tiny miniatures. Again, this is Cripple God Foundry with this one. Um, Now, here's one of the reasons why I don't like some store-bought material. Look at this sword. Look at how bendy that is. It's awful. Now, all in all, I mean, the details on the figurine are fine. But that sword, though, kind of ruins the whole thing. And yeah, you can fix it, but I just hate it. It's always going to look a little curvy no matter what you do. And some more 3D prints. These are primed white. Again, this is 8K material. You can see some very sharp details in there. Once the camera likes to focus every once in a while. There's another Nolzers. This one's actually really good. Sculpt is nice, no bendy bits, very, very nice details, really sharp lines on some of the cuts on the clothing and the muscle. Um, yeah, nice piece. This one's a good one. As far as store bought stuff goes, that one's really nice. And it's durable material, it's very heavy. Feels like you could definitely play with that one. This is another 3D resin printed piece. I think one of the things that I like about 3D resin stuff is that they give you the option of finding these characters and pieces that you wouldn't normally find. And not only that, if you have a nice enough printer, even if it's 4K, if you're using good material, you can get some really nice detailed results out of it. And I think that's important. Anyway, that concludes the show part of this episode, and we're going to just go over the pros and cons of each type of material. So, for me personally, I like to use the UV resin printed material the best. It's one of the nicest materials to finish, takes really well to paint, works really well with high detail sculpts, and you can scale them up and make them, bigger or smaller. There's lots of things you can do with it. So I think the customization and the endless options are really what, in my opinion, make UV resin printed materials the best in that sense. Now, if you're talking about legitimate, like, oh, I need these models because I'm doing competition, or I have, to get legitimate models for a game that I'm playing, then obviously maybe UV resin printed isn't for that. But if you're a collector and you're looking to make some high quality models, and you have some good sculptors under your belt that you can work with, or that on Patreon or something like that, you'll be able to get what you want, get those sculpts, and you'll see that working with UV prints like that is It's going to be amazing. You're going to love the quality of the work that you have to work with. Um, Aside from that, I think the major pro in UV resin printing versus the purchasing of model kits is the cost. UV resin printing is going to be far more cost effective because you can produce hundreds of models with one bottle of resin versus being able to buy one model kit box for pretty much the price of a good, decent bottle of resin. Like, for example, a set of Warhammer Space Marines, like just say basic Space Marines, maybe cost you 50 bucks, 50, 60 bucks. A good bottle of high quality 8K resin will probably cost you about 50, 60 bucks. So I can print a lot more figures than will come in a box. As far as I'm concerned, that's way better on cost. Now, it's not always going to be perfect every time because people are probably thinking, oh, what about failures? What if what if the print doesn't come out well? Fine, we'll factor that in too. But you're still going to wind up spending less money overall because regardless, if you find a sculpt that works, you can print it out 100 times, and regardless, you'll never have to worry about losing a part or breaking it or any of those things, or even a bad paint job, because you can just make another one and try again. So honestly, I think it's a win-win situation. There is a lot of cost savings involved. Obviously, it's not for everyone because the cons of 3D printing or UV resin printing is you need the space, you need the chemicals, you need to be able to clean them, and that takes more of a facility than just like an art desk in a hobby room. So I tell that to folks when they're like, I want to get into 3D printing. I'm like, well, hold on. Do you like the smell of isopropyl alcohol? Because you're going to smell a lot of it mixed with resin, which is an absolutely awful smell. Some people will usually stop right there and go, okay, never mind. Some folks will go look at FDM, but FDM really isn't the best way to go about printing little tiny miniatures. You can do it, but you're never going to capture the same level of details. I mean, they may eventually get there. They might be creeping up for all I know right now, but to get to this on an FDM, I haven't seen yet. So if you want this, you're going to have to learn resin, which means you're going to have to learn, you'd have to learn that any kind of printer, but slicing, resin slicing, obviously supporting, or using, praying and hoping for the auto support system to work. You could do that too. So there's pros and cons. Like I said, those are pretty clear. Your pros on one side is that you have the ability to have reliability when it comes to mass produce stuff. With that, you also have higher cost, and slightly higher as far as durability, because I think that these guys, the model kit plastic, are way more durable than the resin prints. Like, I'm pretty sure if I drop these both, the Space Marine would probably survive for the most part. This guy would probably shatter. I'm sure his sword would break off completely. His arm, probably their arm would probably shatter off. This horn would be gone. There'd be a lot of issues. They don't take well to drops. They're decent when it comes to bending. You can bend parts of them, but don't try to bend them too far. That'll snap too. So durability wise, no, resin printing is not there. There are even ABS like resins, and no, they still don't come. Even tough ABS mixed, in my opinion, still doesn't get you the type of quality that I would expect from heavily durable material. So we don't go there. We know it's not printing the same durability. What we do know is that it's doing high quality and very, very high detail at very low cost. And that is what resin is for. Um, as far as your major other pros and cons, I mean, obviously, injection molded plastic is usually less finishing, whereas 3D prints have, like, little dimples left behind from supports, maybe possibly a broken piece. But that can also happen when removing sprues. So there's a chance of that on both sides. Plus, you always will have finishing on either type of model, so it doesn't really matter. The major, major, major difference to that being maybe epoxy or heavy resin poured material, whereas those usually don't have much except for maybe like a flash line that goes down wherever the mold parting line was. And if they're good about their job, there shouldn't be a parting line mold flash at all. But in most cases, you'll usually see something. Um, and like I said, I think that's pretty much the different types as far as the way that I see them in pros and cons. The only other material we really didn't give pros and cons on is the Nolzer stuff, the stuff that all their stuff is made out of, the D&D miniatures. It's decent enough. It feels like epoxy material, like heavy resins, like heavy epoxy resins, but it feels a little flimsy in parts. The swords, spears, and other things that are thin feel incredibly flimsy, and I think that's an issue for the most part with those. But they do work. They paint well, and they're fairly decent as far as their variety. But again, they're not as cost effective as getting a 3D resin print. If you were to look at, okay, the cost of 10, 5, or $14 for different size miniatures, um, but if I were to say, okay, let me go to, Cripple God Foundry's Patreon, I'll sign up for a month. I'm going to wind up in a month paying, about maybe 15, $20. And I'm going to wind up getting uh, probably about 20 miniatures and a buttload of terrain. So I'm going to get all that for like $20. Then I can go print that for like another 30, 40, $50. And they have they have pre-supported files which work really well. Boom, you all of a sudden have so much more than what you would have paid for if you went through Nulzers. Because if you were to say, okay, I'm going to buy 20 miniatures from Nulzers and I'm going to buy like 10 pieces of terrain, you're probably well already over $100 at that point. So cost, again, is a major factor between the two. Does resin printing look as good as the Nulzers figurines? Heck yeah, it does. These look great, and they look just as good, if not better, than some of the Nulzers counterparts. Um, Durability wise, Nulzer stuff is bendy. It's very hard to break, so it has very, very, very high tension, but not as detailed. And also, it's got the issue with the bendy parts. Absolutely hate the bendy parts. So again, I think if we were to rate the different types of material, I'm going to say that at the top, I feel like injection molded plastic and UV resin prints are like right here. Next to them is like a very, very, very slow, like very, 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 very close second is going to be hard resins, poured resins, epoxy resins, things like that, that are really high detail, but also a little bit more pricey because of the process and the fact that they're so heavy. There's so much material that goes into them. And then I think step down from that, you're going to have stuff like Nolzer's material, where it's a little bendy. Doesn't always have the greatest look to it, but again, takes well to paint. Most of them are pretty high detailed. And then a step below that is going to be like your board game style figurines and plastics for stuff like the Epic Adventures and the Faraway Sea figurines. A little bit less detailed, still decent material in most cases, and not too bad for the price. But again, for just general cost for detail, for dollar value, you still are better off getting a resin printer and trying to print the stuff yourself because you're still going to save yourself a ton of money. Anyway, that's it for my comparison: the pros and cons, different materials, models, and model plastics versus UV resin versus this versus that. Hope this was somewhat educational. I hope y'all enjoyed the information. I hope you got something useful, gleaned something out of it. If you were thinking about getting into 3D resin printing, did this convince you not to? If it did, that wasn't my goal. But maybe it convinced you because you realized I don't have the space for a 3D printer. I don't have the want to have these chemicals in my house, because a lot of folks don't realize resin printing is the one that involves the chemicals, the alcohol, the cleaning system, the curing, all that stuff. It can be a mess. So, again, leave your comments. What's your favorite type? What's your favorite method? What do you like to paint? What do you like to build? What do you like to play with? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel. It helps us out ever so much. We'll see you all real soon.